Okay, here we are back in Bryce, and I'm going to actually go through the steps to complete this assignment. So first and foremost, what I want to do is go to Sky and Fog. What I'm going to do is click on the little triangle that's right next to it. I'm going to click there and choose a backdrop. Now this one's not going to have a sky showing, so we just want a plain backdrop of either flat gray, or you can use simple gray background. Go ahead and click on flat gray. Now to accept any changes here, you want to click on the little check mark, not the X. That'll X you out. So remember, always click on the check mark to accept that change. Next, what I want to do is, again, I'm looking at my camera, and I want to place that camera in my lap. So I'm going to go to Camera Options and choose Camera to Director. And just to make things a little bit easier, if you don't like this paper color that's in your real estate area or working area, you can go over and change that to white. It looks like you can see this a little bit better. You can also choose different colors, and that's the third one or second one down, background paper. And you can try black. Ooh, too dark. So you can choose any color that you'd like. Paper grid, that comes in handy when we start modeling. Actually, grid is even better because you've got the grid here. I'm going to go ahead and keep it at grid. Over in my Nano Preview, you can see that I don't have a sky showing. That's just the backdrop. And I'm going to go ahead and create the three primitives that we'll be using. It's going to be a pyramid, a sphere, and a cube. You can see that they all dropped into the same area, coordinates on my map, or in my working area here. And I'm going to pull those out from the top view. Again, this toggles you through the different views. You can also click on this little triangle down to view options and select from top. Okay. Now another thing I want to point out here is the camera has a trajectory or an area that actually shows here. Anything within these lines is my field of view. So keep that in mind. If I place this outside of that field of view and I go back to the director view, you can now see that I cannot see my sphere. I can just see the pyramid and the cube. So going back to my top view, I'll go ahead and click on the sphere and place it back into the field of view. And while I'm there, I'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And you can see that it sometimes gets a little bit difficult to have this down here that's a big square, and you're probably wondering what that is. That's the actual ground plane. And so that kind of gets in the way when you're working on the top view. But don't worry too much about that. You can just click and drag it out of the way. It doesn't matter. This is an infinite plane, so you will always be able to see that plane there. I'm going to click on the sphere and increase the size just by holding down Shift and clicking on any of these little vertices on the side. You could also go to Edit. Edit is a really good tool to use. It has this resize button. It has a rotate button, a reposition. And so those three are the ones I want you to concentrate right now. Click and drag in the center of the resize, and you can see that that's going to increase or decrease. There we go. And you can make them as big or small as you'd like. I'm going to make mine fairly big. Now, it's okay to cut things out. Remember, this is your creation, and you can rotate things around, make them fall off the plane. Really what we want to do is create a nice composition. and we can rotate our camera a little bit. Remember, playing with the light and dark shadows here. We want to create some nice cast shadows, work with the negative space. And I'm going to just reposition those. You can see now that if I render it, I've got some nice sharp cast shadows happening, but nothing really playing with the other, maybe some reflective lighting and different aspects of what we can have going on here. And that's because we don't have any radial lights in there yet. So let's throw in a radial light. Going back to create, I'm going to click on radial light and perhaps put in another one. This is what's going to create our nice reflective lights, some more shadows in our composition. You can even render it from the top view and get some nice negative space going on in there. Now, as you see here, I've clicked on render, and that's flattening this out for me. And as it renders through, you're seeing that it's taking those pixels and ironing them out. In other words, it's really smoothing out the edges. That's really what rendering does. It actually goes through different passes and renders and irons out all the little pixelation. So you don't want to hit the render button before it actually finishes going through the many passes that it needs to go through in order for this to become a nice sharp image. Usually it doesn't take this long to render through, but I am rendering at a large size. The more reflective material, the more lights you're using, the longer it will take to render. So this is the concept of the first assignment. The sample image that I've shown you in the canvas area is really what to take away from what I'm doing. But you can see that I could still kind of continue working with different things, again, to create some nice negative space here and a nice composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to save this out. So once you start kind of getting a nice composition that you really like, I would suggest to try this or actually do this assignment several times so that you can kind of get used to some of the tools and practice with the tools that we're going to be using throughout this course. You also want to save it here, so I'm going to save it first as a Bryce file, and I'll name that last name first initial. And you could also do the _1. I like that at the beginning, so let's do actually this is assignment 1 and last name first initial. Alright, now it's still rendered out, and it's very important to go ahead and go up to File again in your application menu and go to Save Image As, and then save that again with your last name. I guess the point I want to make here is if you upload your work, once I download it, I need to know who it's from, so it's important to put your name and attach your name to the file. I'm going to go ahead and save that somewhere where I can find it. On the desktop is good. High quality, you could do max quality as well. I do want a nice big image and maximum quality, and then submit it through Canvas.